Hello and welcome everyone to the 5G Factor. I'm Ron Westfall, Research Director here at the Futurum Group. And I'm joined here today by my distinguished colleague, Olivier Blanchard. And he's our Research Director focused on very important areas such as devices and semiconductors, including 5G naturally. And today we will be focusing on major 5G ecosystem developments that have caught our eye. And that will actually include, you guessed it, AI. And we're actually looking at a distinct aspect of it. It really is going to be a conversation about what is being characterized and being promoted as responsible AI, as well as transparent AI, and the variations very close to that. And so, with that, Olivier, thank you so much for joining. How have things been coming along since our last episode together?
We've had eclipses, uh, we've had monsoons, we've had earthquakes, but I'm good.
Yeah, we've lived to tell the tale. And so, yes, welcome to the post eclipse era. And hopefully, AI will play a major role here in making it just that, a more responsible and, say, environmentally friendly era as a result. And so, with that in mind, we recently participated in the Intel Vision 2024 event. And really, at that event, it was Intel really coming out and presenting its AI proposition on a portfolio wide basis. And in fact, on an ecosystem wide basis. That is pretty much underlying, it's bringing AI everywhere vision to basically all the players out there, including partners, customers, anybody who's involved with the technical aspects of making AI work. And so, what I think was very interesting is that it focused on critical sectors that included, finance, manufacturing, healthcare, but also there was plenty of material related to the mobile ecosystem, especially when it came to generative AI capabilities, that is Gen AI, and also, taking it from experimental phases to full scale implementation. And that really is the bottom line. It's about going from proof of concept and bringing it to productization that is having an impact on the organization's say finances and monetization. In fact, Intel shared, I think, a very important takeaway with their own research. Only 10% of organizations have taken their Gen AI, basically, tire kicking, proof of concepts, and so forth, and have them in a production environment today. So we're very much at the front end of this. This is something that is clearly going to be evolving dramatically in 2024 and beyond. But also, I think that's important to note that we want to see more than 10%. In fact, some folks even thought, wow, 10% is a pretty progressive number. But that aside, I think what is important is what Intel is offering. And to spearhead it, Intel introduced the Gaudi 3 accelerator that is designed really to enable open community based software and open standard or open industry standard Ethernet to really enable AI systems to take off, to get past that, say, 10% threshold and make, say, Gen AI capabilities more production ready and friendly. And so, how is Intel doing that? Well, they're basically offering an architecture that delivers improved Gen AI performance and efficiency, especially in relation to existing implementations. And as we know, that means NVIDIA's AI capabilities, for example, the H100 GPUs, but also H200, and on the horizon, the Blackwell offering. And so, this is going to be a very interesting, I say, contest because in addition to the fact that we know that there's a supply shortage, really, when it comes to NVIDIA GPUs, we're seeing Intel coming up and saying, hey, look, not only can we address this fundamental issue, but we can come in with something that can be actually more rewarding from, say, a price performance and other aspects. That is, again, the openness, being able to leverage capabilities that align, say, with Ethernet networking. And so, with that in mind, it's designed to allow activation of all the engines that are being used out there in parallel. That includes the matrix multiplication engine, or MME, tensor processor cores, TPCs, as well as network interface cards, or quite simply, NICs. So we're all familiar with these engines and how they fundamentally need to come together to allow Gen AI to do its thing in an optimized fashion. And so the key features include, first of all, an AI dedicated compute engine. And so the Intel Gaudi 3 accelerator is purpose built just for that high performance, high efficiency Gen AI compute. Second, and next, is a memory boost for LLM capacity requirements, specifically 128 gigabytes of HBM E2 memory capacity in combination with 3.7 terabytes of memory bandwidth and 96 megabytes of onboard static random access memory, or SRAM. And why this is important is because we're seeing today that it's really the memory supply that's kind of wagging, or it is in many key ways, wagging the prices of GPUs and how they are built and put together. And so what Intel is proposing is a more efficient way to use memory, and also quite simply a more cost-effective way to use memory. And so this could be, I think, one of the key differentiators as to why Intel, when it comes to adopting Gaudi 3 AI accelerators in combination with Xeon CPUs. Now, also, in addition, they're looking at quite simply efficient scaling for specifically enterprise environments, which also includes, and we'll touch on this, operators as well as other mobile ecosystem players. And so that's an offering that has 24 200 gigabit Ethernet ports that are basically integrated to every Gaudi 3 accelerator. Next up is the fact that, again, it's the openness. It's an alternative to, say, NVIDIA CUDA approach. And that is something I think that is very keen out there. That's not to say that, supporting, say, NVIDIA's InfiniBand capabilities is not going to go away overnight. But I think, including NVIDIA itself, is seeing the writing on the wall. This is something that's going to increasingly become an Ethernet fabric that's going to be required to enable this heavy lifting of, for example, Gen AI and AI training, as well as overall inferencing. So this is something that Intel, I believe, from the inception, can take advantage of. It doesn't have any IntelliBand, say, legacy issues to really address in terms of how to move forward in an optimal way. And so this naturally includes integrating PyTorch framework, and that's as well as having it provide a optimized Hugging Face community-based models. And we find that this is really the most common AI framework out there for Gen AI developers, and that's going to be simply a key aspect here is getting the developers on and making sure that they can have a good experience in terms of enabling Gen AI capabilities using the Intel platform. And also the Gaudi 3 PCIe, basically it's the peripheral component interconnect express card that is really designed for lowering power. And obviously that's going to be another major aspect. As we've seen, current GPU cluster designs can take quite a lot of power to really operate. Yes, there are some improvements on the horizon, but here is a way to really, I think, deliver even more power efficiency within a reasonable time frame, that is within calendar 2024. Now, the direct mobile ecosystem impacts include the fact that Bharti Airtel is on board using Intel's AI technology across the portfolio. And so really it's aimed at naturally leveraging their existing telecom data to enhance its overall AI capabilities to improve the experiences of its customers and partners. So this is, I think, a direct example of how a major operator is, basically operating as a large enterprise and is already looking at ways to leverage Intel's new capabilities. In addition, Infosys was also prioritized as a new customer on board. And as we know, they provide digital services and consulting, including the targeting of the mobile ecosystem as well as operators. And they're basically using Intel technologies that stem across the 4th and 5th gen Intel Xeon processors, as well as the Gaudi 2 AI accelerator today, as well as Core Ultra to support Infosys Topaz, which is an AI first set of services solutions and platforms that seek to accelerate business value using Gen AI technologies. So yeah, that's a lot of information, and that's actually a summarization of some of the key takeaways from one of the major announcements. And so I'll stop there because I know there's a lot more to talk about here. And Olivier, from your view, what Intel's doing in terms of bringing AI everywhere and how it's approaching it, its impact on the 5G ecosystem, what are some of your key takeaways?
Well, that was quite the thorough summary, I have to say. And if that was the summary, that's terrifying. No, it's pretty great. Intel. Well, okay, two things. One, I just want to throw in there that we talk about NVIDIA and the H100, H200, and other devices or other products on the horizon. But I do want to give a shout out to AMD because they have the MI300X solution, which is also a pretty good equivalent, somewhere between the H100 and the H200, depending on what you want to do. That's also part of the ecosystem, and that can, and I think will, fill some of the demand gaps that NVIDIA can't fill. So I know that we just kind of like glance over AMD quite a bit, but and it's they have a good product out there as well that's getting traction. So that's one kind of like a little footnote that's always in the back of my mind when we talk about NVIDIA, sort of like this. I know they have 90% of the or 90 plus percent of the market right now, but not necessarily forever. The second thing, though, more importantly, is I do like um, the sort of not necessarily use case specific design and thinking from pretty much every other silicon makers. Like, how could we compete against NVIDIA, or how can we compete alongside NVIDIA? And so this sort of focus on specific verticals, on specific types of applications, on the range of performance, and finding products that are going to be not necessarily overkill, and not be underwhelming, but fit in that framework of, this is the type of application, this is the kind of performance and bandwidth that we're looking at, and so we're going to create products specifically to fit in that tier, and just sort of like create products and solutions, like combined solutions, that aren't necessarily premium to commodity, but that are extremely well tuned to fit in these boxes and these blocks, depending on what you're trying to do. So it could be, the operators. It could be like 5G network stuff. It could be, inference work. It could be, training on LLMs, but maybe not like the super like huge LLMs. It could be even um, the LMMs, the mixed models, not just the language models. So what Intel is doing, I think, is smart. I like their, I don't know that I'd call it a diversification strategy, but definitely a more organic, more use case focused approach to generative AI, to fabs even. Just what Intel is doing to kind of get out of its rut of the last few years, and sort of, I wouldn't say jumpstart its revenue engine, its business engine, but definitely create more on ramps to opportunities is really smart. And this is a good example of Intel doing that, and its ability to execute. Um, I think what people sometimes forget about Intel, even if they don't necessarily have the number one, the best solution that everybody wants, is they're extremely good at executing. And they're extremely good at finding those niches and those on ramps to get back in the game when they've taken out their eye off the ball for a couple of years, which happens to pretty much every company. And so this was kind of exciting news in my view, and it's exciting news for the carriers as well, I think.
Yeah, in fact, I think those were all very key topics that were at play at the event. It's like we have to look at Intel overall. And we know, okay, when it comes to the financials, it's kind of a 90-day scorecard, but that's different from the long view, the strategic implications of building foundries here in the US. And so that makes Intel unique in terms of how they are, competing against the other players. And that, I think will prove a very fundamental difference further down the line, to the point where these competitors will be turning to Intel for, their foundry work. And I think that it was an excellent point, Olivier, about Intel executing, because we know that a few months back, Intel basically unveiled its Bringing AI Everywhere campaign. And here at Intel Vision, it was okay, this is how we're executing. These are the details in terms of our portfolio, our partnerships, our overall strategy to really make, enterprise AI not only a production ready proposition, but to, fundamentally ensure positive business outcomes, or certainly improving them. And so it's pretty much the first inning in
Yeah.
terms of, what is going on here in terms of the competitive mix, and, answering the question, why Intel? And that certainly played into their emphasis on the openness aspect. I think that is going to resonate more and more. Clearly, for example, OpenVINO will play an integral role in enabling not just the developers, but also other parties to support these capabilities. And that aligns with, what we kicked off with, responsible AI, transparent AI. You definitely need that openness built in as part of, making sure that those types of initiatives and strategic objectives actually are going to, be built in, organic, as you put it, or quite simply, make sure that these outcomes are going to minimize things like drifting and hallucinations, but also, making sure that the bad actors don't flip this on the ecosystem, something that the rest of the good guys, which I would count as us, would certainly not want to see. And so, with that in mind, let's turn to, I think, another, I think, important, I guess you can say, coming out that was aligned with this, and that is in a recent blog, Durga Malati, the Qualcomm SVP and GM for Technology Planning and Ed Solutions, detailed how Qualcomm's vision is for shaping the future of AI responsibly. Now, they've been certainly emphasizing their commitment to AI for years now, and this is definitely part of their DNA. And I think this is something that they've certainly been paying attention to. But I think it's also helpful that with this blog, that it's a sharpening of how Qualcomm is going to make sure responsible AI is going to be primal in terms of how AI will evolve, including naturally Gen AI. And so, one of the core principles of responsible AI is privacy and security. I think that's understood across the board, but it's like, okay, how can this be quite simply implemented? And as AI systems collect and analyze, these vast amounts of data, it's going to be essential to protect individuals' privacy rights and also ensure the security of sensitive information. And so, from our view, by promoting transparency, Qualcomm is targeting the fostering of trust and also enabling users to make informed decisions about AI technologies, ensuring that they align with their values and expectations. So we definitely need to basically dial back some of the Wild West aspects here. It's inevitable when we have these innovation bursts, but I think this is going to be quite simply essential in terms of making sure that AI delivers on an optimal basis, but also, as promised by many of the key players out there. So what Qualcomm is doing in partnership with True Epic and with the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, or C2PA, no, it's not a Star Wars robot, but C2PA, is that they're advancing the way they verify the authenticity of, for example, photos. And so we know that's going to be very important when it comes to minimizing fakes, and that's going to be certainly going to be a factor, for example, in the 2024 elections here in the U.S., but in other parts of the world. So this is something that's vital. And by using Snapdragon platforms, we see that the technology can create a cryptographic seal around photos taken from a smartphone. And so what this does is that the seal not only includes essential metadata like the date, the time, and location, but it can also verify if AI was used and the specific type that was employed. I think many people would fully appreciate that, and thus prevent some of the games that are going on out there with deep fakes and so forth. Now, for example, if generative AI was used to manipulate the image, the digital seal can accurately detect it. And even during the transfer of the image to another device, the certificate remains intact, ensuring the preservation of that integrity. And so, from my view, this collaboration exemplifies Qualcomm's commitment to transparency and upholding the integrity of content to the era of Gen AI. And so, with that, I know, Olivia, you've been certainly looking at this in detail. What's your view on Qualcomm coming out here and saying, here are some key ways to make sure that AI is going to be just that, ethical, responsible, and transparent?
Right. Well, I think that's just it's the type of leadership that we desperately need in the industry.
Right.
Um, and no, and so it works on two levels. One, it works on the level of Qualcomm being a responsible technology company, not only providing the generative AI capabilities on their devices, right, which we've talked about many times on this podcast, where essentially the whole on-device AI capabilities that we're seeing. So the transition from generative AI just being on the cloud, where you're on your device and you're doing your work through an app that actually works in the cloud and sends the information back. Um, a lot of what Qualcomm's been working on is having generative AI work directly on the device. It doesn't leave the device. It doesn't go to the cloud. It's all there for security reasons, for speed reasons. There's almost no lag. So we're going to see the arrival of devices, not just mobile phones, but also PCs and tablets that can run a lot of these generative AI apps on the device without any connection to the internet. So it's important for Qualcomm to take a stance there and to create these certificates, these modalities, these processes that capture, first of all, that what type of manipulation has been done to an image or to a video, and also translates it to users to be able to say, okay, like this, whether you're the New York Times or anybody else, being able to look at an image or a video and say, see exactly how it's been manipulated. If it's just been, edited for contrast and lighting, and just a little bit of a color adjustment, or if it's actually been manipulated to change its intent or its content in a way that is substantial as opposed to just aesthetic. The other way that it works, I think, is establishing Qualcomm as a leader in the generative AI space. So it goes beyond the ethics. It also goes to brand positioning, and company positioning with regards to perhaps investors, but also industry partners and the public at large, which is something that I think is clever. It's something that more companies should do, but we don't necessarily think of Qualcomm as a leader in AI and generative AI capabilities, or at least enablement. We just think of them as the chip maker. We think of them as an IP company. We think of them as, a component maker. We don't always think of them as the enablement company for generative AI on devices. And this is sort of a reminder with every single file that's out there with a policy like this, and with its application every single day for the next few years, is a constant reminder that Qualcomm is that company, and that it plays in this space, and they play such an important role in it. But the last thing I would say is just kind of like the caveat in all this. Yes, if you're transferring the image, the video, whatever the file is, from one device to another, the certificate follows it. We still need a solution for screenshots, because it's still very easy to just take a screenshot of an image that will not have the certificate, that will not have all this metadata following it around, and still post it on a social network or somewhere else. And so it's still not a completely foolproof model. We still have to find other ways of verifying images and verifying their authenticity, or at least their context, if they're not fully authentic, but they don't necessarily detract from the story that they're telling. Um, but that's something that's beyond Qualcomm or any other company's ability or purview. I think that might fall more on the on publications, on social networks and social platforms, and perhaps just the law in general. Oh, one last thing. There's a difference between art and um, and news and news commentary. And I think, it's important not to censor images that are manipulated, um, but it's important to create the right context. If I want to manipulate an image for my own artistic expression, and use it for that purpose, I should be allowed to. There shouldn't be a prohibition against that. But the moment that that image is used to lie to people, to commit some kind of fraud, intellectual, political, financial, or in any other way, then that's when we get into some issues where the public at least needs to be notified that, hey, this exclamation mark, the image that you're looking at has been manipulated, and here's how.
No, those are all excellent points. And yes, it's definitely an ecosystem dimension
Yeah.
here. It's not just Qualcomm. And that's why I think Durga's blog is so valuable, because it's pointing out, like, yeah, we're not going to necessarily account for every single instant, but it can be very important for peace of mind when it comes to, for example, a national security application, or a mission critical or a public safety application, because there are bad players out there. And so yes, we're going to have parodies, we're going to have manipulation. If it's one thing if somebody's doing it from their college dorm room, and it's on a topic that is comic. But when it comes to these other contexts, when it comes to these use cases, this is something that can quite simply provide that difference, and again, provide what can be characterized as peace of mind, because there is that risk that if AI is falling into or being manipulated to such a degree that it can end up producing Hindenburg like scenarios, and obviously that needs to be avoided. We don't want this to end up like the Hindenburg, a dramatic crash of say an entire mobile network because AI was being used the wrong way in the wrong hands. And here's something that can help transparency, that can help for very specific instances where it will prove vital. And so that was looking at images and the that aspect of it. But there's also another important aspect here that's being impacted, and that is how transparent AI can actually play a role in the application of audio product development. So now we're talking about the audio dimension here. And what caught our attention was that Nokia recently presented its approach to this, and how they're building their products basically using transparent AI. So products such as their Ozo audio and immersive voice capabilities are assuring that mobile devices come with the sounds of immersion, clarity, and focus. Again, cutting down on potential confusion and manipulation. Now, this, of course, requires extensive exploration and also analysis and testing of every step of the development process. And so, as such, Nokia is using machine learning models to analyze the output and tweaks of the algorithms so that the Nokia team can get the desired results that it's aiming for. Also, Nokia is using software tools, practices, and ML ops, which I think has been a bit unsung, but it's certainly going to be integral to how AI itself evolves. But it's also understood as AI slash ML when it comes to product development, operations, so many other key aspects that aren't necessarily Gen AI only. Now, with that in mind, what is going to come out of that is just there's more trustworthiness that can come from the data that's used for developing not only their products, but also how audio capabilities are integrated and optimized. And so as a result, Nokia is basically using a configuration management tool, Hydra, that I think will gain more recognition here over the course of this year and beyond. But what it's actually enabling is the use of PyTorch lighting, which is a framework that helps to speed up development work and basically unify the tools that are being used. And as such, it can ensure that Nokia and whoever else uses these capabilities can reproduce its results every time. So we definitely need that consistency and reliability built in. And to basically tie off this introduction by me, there's a new acronym I want to share with folks out there. It's SLURM. Now, I know many folks have heard of it, but not necessarily everybody. And it's Simple Linux Utility for Resource Management. Now, why is SLURM important here? Well, it's a tool that Nokia is using to make sure that what is being shown is that the user is running a specific job, which you touched on, Olivier, and with the resources that are required. And as a result, Nokia is having Slurm work with its container system, Apptainer, to allow the transfer of its code in a transparent way between allocated resources across the data centers. Now, this way, Nokia can transfer and manage its jobs without the challenges that have typically arisen when different versions of the same software are used. So we know there's going to be a lot of software updating going on here, and thus version alignment is not going to be possible every single time, but that shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter which version is being used. You have to be able to tap into something like Slurm to assure that you're going to get these, better outputs, these improved business outcomes, and so forth. And with that, Olivier, what are you seeing in terms of not only Nokia's initiative here, but what's going on in terms of enabling audio optimization, smart audio, and so forth?
Yeah. So for starters, Slurm is just a wonderful acronym. I love it so much. Um, so beyond that, no, it's brilliant. Um, Beyond that, no, I think the connection between AI, whether it's generative AI or just kind of assistance, um, and so the application of more advanced AI and generative AI in our daily lives and audio, and is I think still understated and underappreciated. Um, I feel that um, as we move forward to a world that's much more AI forward, that where AI becomes much more ubiquitous, we can be basically in any room and just talk and prompt an AI assistant to help us with a query, with a search, with a process, with whatever it is. Voice is still the most natural interface. It's not so much a keyboard. It's not tapping a screen. Um, it's not gestures and pinching. All these things help, and they're going to continue to be part of that ecosystem. But I think that the natural voice interface back and forth between an AI who can respond to us in our natural language and that understands our natural language is critical moving forward. We're starting to see it with smart glasses, which
Mhm.
are not technically, I mean, they're still an XR product. They're not augmented reality. They're not mixed reality. They're just smart glasses. But the smart glasses that were put out by Meta in collaboration with Ray-Ban last year, which, by the way, uses Qualcomm's own XR platform, is a really good example of what's to come, which is basically telling the camera, hey, take a picture, start filming, doing things like that, make a call Ron, and then automatically it will do that. And then the relationship between the user and the device becomes even more important with regards to voice, because now you have to have smart speakers that if you're wearing glasses, direct the sound into your ears and optimizes the sound to be able to sort of cancel out noises outside of your listening pleasure, but focus the sound directly to your ears. So we're seeing that technology move that way. We also need noise cancellation to enable microphones, whether they're microphones around a room or microphones in a device, whether it's handheld or worn on your face, to be able to cancel out noise, whether it's a crowd or wind if you're in a car, for instance, or any kind of ambient sound, to focus on the voice and be able to understand it better, to process that language in order to be able to query the AI. And so that relationship between voice interfaces, voice capabilities, or sounds, and um, and AI is really really critical. And what's interesting on the device level, especially on the software and silicon level, is that it's a performance feedback loop where AI needs voice and sound in order to be more to create more utility for users, but also AI can help fine tune that audio and sound capability by using noise cancellation, by using voice enhancement and sound enhancement, choosing the right channels, and doing all of this very complex, intelligent fine tuning to get the best voice capture and the best sound feedback. So it's pretty great. I think that up until now, I've noticed that sound has been sort of the last thing on a lot of tech companies' platform introductions, and I've seen this with Qualcomm. I've seen it with others, where it's kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, let's talk about sound as well because we have all this cool
Right.
stuff. But
Right.
I suspect that that connection to AI is going to bring sound quality, sound intelligence, and the type of project and endeavor that you were talking about with Nokia, and bring that to the forefront of those experiences because it's not just an afterthought anymore. It's not just a, oh, and we have sound as well. It's critical to the future of AI, or AI interfaces rather.
Yeah, I think those are just spot on, Olivier, in terms of why audio is going to play such a major role in how Gen AI, as well as all the related applications can be successful because natural language processing. Yes, you can type it and so forth, but there are definitely going to be contexts and scenarios where the audio aspect is going to be vital. That is talking into a prompt, being able to have prompts that are clearly understood, and also the explainability, if it has to be done on an audio basis, is just doing that. It's allowing the user or the groups of people involved to know what's going on. And we already touched on uh, contexts like mission critical applications, but also public safety. And there's just so many ways why this is actually going to be just a major piece of the puzzle. And we anticipate that will become increasingly emphasized in terms of portfolio development. So it's not like this, oh, by the way, aspect. And so that's why, yeah, that Nokia blog definitely leaps out at us. And so with that, my concluding thought is long live Slurm, but also thank you, Olivier, for joining us today. I hope you have a great weekend and week ahead of you,
I hope so too. Thank you. The same to
naturally.
you, and same
Yeah,
to everyone watching.
naturally
Or
earthquake
next
free.
weekend if you're catching us next week. There's still a weekend coming, so you're good. Just hang in
Thumbs
there.
up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to our viewing audience and listening audience, yeah, please keep in mind the 5G factor can be bookmarked. Also, reserve that ability to get the heads up when our next recording and our next interaction is being broadcast out there. And so, with that, everybody have a wonderful 5G and Gen AI day. Thank you.